I was making coffee when I caught the scent of burning wood. Not smoke, but warm ash. The smell of pine logs smoldering beneath damp wooden floorboards. The kitchen was still. No one was cooking. But that scent, it pulled me back. To a moment. To a place. To someone I haven't dared to name in nearly 40 years. I stood still by the window, a hot cup of coffee in my hand. It was March, snow had melted, but the air still carried a chill. Outside, the oak tree stood bare. Inside, I began to remember. Back then, I was just 23, fresh from the war in Vietnam, with a piece of shrapnel lodged in my left calf and a letter from my commanding officer declaring I was eligible for repatriation. But I didn't feel like I was going home. I felt hollow. My mother had passed away. My father had moved to Florida with his second wife. And me, I didn't know where I belonged. Until one day, the bus I was on had a minor accident in a remote town about 30 miles from Wichita. I fell, my legs slamming into the edge of the seat. The old shrapnel started throbbing again. I dragged myself off at a roadside stop. Blood seeped through my pants. No one noticed, except her. A woman around 36, with brown hair tied loosely at the nape of her neck. Cotton shirt, a skirt down to her ankles, no makeup, no designer brands, but her eyes. Steady as still water. She said just 4 words. "Do you need help?" I nodded, said nothing. And just like that, she helped me to her home, a low-roofed wooden house with a porch that looked out onto a wheat field already harvested. I didn't know her name, and she didn't ask mine. That's how it began. Half a step, half a trust, and a memory rising again from the scent of burning wood. She didn't ask anything. She didn't ask where I came from, or why I was wandering around with an old wound that never fully healed. She just looked at my leg, carefully, then softly said, "You need to lie down. Now." I sat down on the wooden chair by the kitchen. She rolled up my pant leg. Her eyes narrowed slightly when she saw the blood-soaked bandage. No fear, no hesitation, not a single shake in her hands. She cleaned the wound with warm water and a bit of antiseptic, dried the bruised skin gently, as if she were tending to a fragile antique. I didn't say anything. Truth is, I didn't know what to say, but I remember one thing vividly, the faint scent of mint from the cloth she used to wipe the wound. After that, she led me upstairs. A small room with a low ceiling, a gray wool blanket, and a window overlooking the open field. "You can stay here for a few days. No one else lives here. Just me. Don't worry." I nodded. It felt strange, as if I were someone else, borrowing this body to exist. A few days later, I woke up in the middle of the night. Moonlight poured through the crack of the door. I heard her in the kitchen. Light, steady, slow sounds, the snap of firewood, the soft stir of a spoon in a pot, the smell of chicken soup. I came downstairs. She didn't seem surprised, just pulled out another chair. "Does your leg still hurt?" I nodded. Hungry, I shook my head. We sat in silence. A strange silence. Not awkward, not uncomfortable, just breath and presence. Then she spoke. Bits and pieces. No beginning, no end. She told me she used to be a nurse at the town clinic. Her husband died in a car crash one winter 8 years ago. And since then, she lived alone. No children, no close family. I don't feel lonely, but sometimes I wish someone would just walk across that porch. I didn't reply, but my hand stayed on the table, and hers gently pulled the napkin a little closer. The next morning, I saw her place a vase of wild daisies on the windowsill. Not for anyone, just because the sun was out that day. Some days the rain would come. All of a sudden, I stood under the porch, leaning on my crutch, watching it soak the old roof tiles. She came out, stood next to me, and draped a blanket over my shoulders. "Soldier, when you got hurt, why didn't you go home?" I didn't answer right away. I lowered my head. A long pause. Then I said, because I don't have a place I can call home. She said nothing. They just held my hand gently. In the rain, beneath the rotting wooden awning, something softened. No promises, no names. Only a kind of kindness that asked for no explanation. I don't remember exactly what day of the week it was, only that the sky was gray. The wind whistled through the cracks in the door in a strange, rhythmic hum. I woke up just before midnight. The dull ache in my leg had eased, but something in my chest felt heavier. Stranger. I stepped into the hallway. The house was silent. A soft light spilled out from the kitchen. She was sitting there alone, a cup of tea in her hands. Beige sweater, hair tied back, her face tilted slightly toward the fireplace. The fire was small, just enough to make the strands of her hair glow like threads of silver. She turned to look at me, said nothing, just patted the chair beside her. I sat down, close enough to hear her breathing, close enough to catch the faint scent of chamomile tea drifting like a short breeze from her cup. "You can stay as long as you like," she said softly. I nodded, but I knew time wasn't what I needed. I needed a reason to exist after the war. I looked at her, long, deep, and for the first time, I asked, "What's your name?" She smiled like she had been waiting for that question all along. "Evelyn." I repeated it in my head. Evelyn, a soft name, light, but strangely weighty. I reached out my hand. A simple, clumsy gesture from a man who hadn't touched anything but dust, rifles, and cold commands in far too long. Evelyn looked at me. Her eyes weren't sad. They weren't joyful. Just still. Then she reached out, placed her hand in mine. That hand wasn't as soft as I'd imagined. Calloused, a few rough patches, but warm. So warm. We didn't say another word, but everything had changed. She stood up first. I was about to return to my room, but Evelyn paused at the foot of the stairs. "If you get cold, my room's at the end of the hall." Then she walked up without looking back. I stood there for a few seconds, then followed. Her room wasn't big, but tidy. Lavender in the air, a wooden desk, an old wool blanket folded neatly at the edge of the bed. She sat down, didn't look away. Neither did I. In that moment, we were no longer savior and saved. No longer a widow and a soldier. Just two people, lonely, tired, and still alive. Evelyn reached for the bandage on my leg, gently removed the dressing, checked the wound. No questions, no words. I didn't explain. When she placed her hand on my chest, I felt it clearly. It wasn't desire. It was affirmation that I was still human. Then I touched her back, felt every curve, every shallow breath, every quiet gasp like wind brushing past the ear. No moans, no drama, just the sound of two people who had lost too much, trying to reach for what was left. Afterward, we lay still. I didn't sleep, just stared at the ceiling. Evelyn's hand is still resting on mine. "Will you be leaving soon?" she asked, whispering. I turned to face her. No makeup, no mask. Just Evelyn, the woman who had quietly saved someone like me without asking for anything in return. I didn't know how to answer. "I don't know yet." I said, "I won't keep you, but if you need, stay until you remember how to live again." I nodded, and inside me, something shifted. For the first time since the war, I didn't feel invisible. That morning, there were no roosters crowing, only the sound of a freight train in the distance. So far away, it barely felt real. I woke to soft sunlight filtering through the curtains. Evelyn was no longer beside me. I sat up. A hollow feeling spread through my joints. Not pain, but it's not easy to breathe either. The wool shawl she'd left behind still held her warmth. I stepped out onto the porch. Evelyn was standing at the far end of the garden, watering the mint pots. I walked toward her. Every step, pressing more memory into my chest. She didn't turn around. She just said, "The early train comes through at 8. I nodded, though no one could see. "Thank you for everything," I said. Evelyn turned slightly, calmly. "No need to thank me. I only did what people often forget to do, take care of someone for no reason at all." I lowered my head. We stood in silence for a moment. Then I asked, "Will you be okay?" Evelyn let out a soft laugh. "I've been okay for 8 years, and this morning, I still am." "What about me?" I asked. She didn't answer right away. She stepped closer, gently adjusting the scarf around my neck. The motion was slow and delicate, like a mother straightening her son's uniform before he ships off to war. "You'll be okay when you stop blaming yourself for being alive. You don't owe me anything. Just carry this with you as a quiet place where life once softened." I didn't know what to say, because sometimes, and there are no words good enough. Evelyn drove me to the station. The old green pickup rattled the whole way. Neither of us said much. We just sat. The wind blew. The fields rushed by on both sides like a worn-out film reel. Blurry, faded, but haunting. The train arrived right on time. I opened the door and stepped out. Evelyn didn't get out of the truck. She just rolled down the window, gave a small nod. "I hope you find a reason to stay wherever that may be." I touched the side of the truck. "Evelyn, yes, I won't forget." She didn't reply, just smiled. A smile that didn't need an answer. Then, the truck pulled away. Dust rose and swallowed the road. I stood still, on the platform, alone, with a small backpack and a crumpled train ticket. No one is waiting. No one waving goodbye. But inside me, something had changed color. No more gunpowder smoke. Only the scent of chamomile tea. Nearly 40 years have passed. I live in a small town near the edge of Ohio. Work part-time at the old library. 3 shifts a week. I like quiet. I hate fluorescent lights. No one here knows I used to be a soldier. No one asks about those years. And I don't offer. I packed the war into a tin box and sealed it shut. Left it in the attic, along with things no one touches anymore. Until that morning. A letter. No stamp. No postmark. Just my name, written in blue ink. I picked it up. My hand started to tremble. Yellowed paper. Careful handwriting. "My name is Claire. I'm Evelyn's daughter." I had to sit down. I read slowly. My eyes weren't what they used to be, but each word seemed to rise off the page, steeped in memory. "My mother passed away last fall. She went peacefully, in her sleep, on the very bed you once lay in. When cleaning the house, I found a small box. Inside were only 2 things: an old wool shawl and a slip of paper with your name on it. She didn't say much, only that someone once came and left behind a silence more beautiful than love. I don't know who you are, but if you're reading this, I hope you know that my mother wasn't alone." I stopped reading. I couldn't go on for several minutes. My heart beat slowly, but steady. It was as if someone were knocking gently against my chest, reminding me that I was still there. I looked out the window. December sky. No snow yet, but the air smelled just like the day I left damp earth, dry grass, and a longing that had no name. That night, I did something strange. I wrote back. Didn't send it, just wrote, "Evelyn, I still remember you. I remember that night. I remember the gentleness that needed no reason. I remember your warm kitchen and your hand on my forehead. I never asked if you loved me, and you never had to say it, because one night was enough for me to survive 40 years. I didn't go back to your house, never returned to that place, because I know the most precious things, sometimes, shouldn't be touched twice. But if you're listening somewhere, if souls can still smell, know this: I still brew chamomile tea every autumn, just the way you used to." I folded the letter, placed it in an old book. No name on the envelope, because the person it's meant for has gone. But I know you never really left me. Not completely. Old age doesn't come all at once. It creeps in, in the trembling fingers trying to button a shirt, in the unconscious sigh as you walk down the stairs. And in the mornings, when you no longer remember why you're making coffee, that's how it is for me too. But there's one thing I haven't forgotten. One night, one woman, one touch that didn't need a name. Every autumn, I still brew chamomile tea. I don't drink it. I just let it sit. Let the scent fill the room. Soft, like a wordless call. I used to think war would be the thing that marked me the deepest. But it wasn't. Not the gunfire, not the marching orders. It was a night with a firelight, a hand pressed to a wound, and the silence. That made me feel alive. Someone once asked me, "Have you ever loved someone deeply?" I smiled, then said, "I once slept beside a woman I never touched again after that one night." But every day, I thank her for helping me remember how to be human. I never got married, not because I feared love, but because my heart never needed to search again. I already had a place to return to, a gaze that was soft enough, a night that was full enough, and more than anything, a woman named Evelyn did something the world never did. She accepted a broken man without trying to fix him. Now, I'm old. I live in a small house with an oak tree out front. Sometimes kids from the neighborhood knock on my door, asking for help with their bikes. I fix them, then sit back on the porch, watch the leaves fall, listen to the wind, and remember the scent of chamomile tea. I don't need anyone to believe this story, and I don't wish for it to become some chapter in a novel, because for me, that one night was a lifetime.